Hi, this is Khaya Mahlangu. I'm a saxophonist, composer, arranger, and teacher. Well, basically it was self-driven. Although in my pre-teen years, I played penny whistle and the 5-gallon tin smashed into one side and put 3 tubes, strips from a tire tube, and to make like a bass line guitar like that. But just generally there was a lot of music at home. But like I was saying, in my pre-teens, I picked up the penny whistle because I grew up at a time when the penny whistle was dying and the saxophone, and going to church with my aunt. I fell in love with wind instruments. But I never pictured myself as a musician, really, because I remember I must have been like 10. My father wanted to buy me a guitar. I refused, and I think this was 1964. After Malombo, got onto the scene and people were talking about Malombo and so on. So I didn't picture myself as a musician until much later. But I can say I had it in me because as I grew older into my teens, whenever I was alone in the house, I pictured myself performing for audiences, but still it hadn't gelled, and I fell in love with the saxophone even before I played it. So when I was at primary school, higher primary, I played the bugle with the Boy Scouts. And then by 16, the music was starting to build up in me, So I joined the Ionian Youth Orchestra under Professor Kabim Ngoma. So from bugle, I progressed to trumpet. And I was taught by Ndati Mulife Pitwe, or Phineas Pitwe. Is a scholar, he published some books, he was involved with the Black Consciousness movement, got incarcerated for his activities, then he left for Europe, he settled in London. And then when I went to boarding school, my parents were like, oh, music is kind of making you crazy. We're taking you to a boarding school in Durban. And that was just the right place for me to be because music was highly encouraged in that school. The principal played piano and Date SD Ngobo. And there was Date Koba, his deputy, was a saxophonist. So there was 4 choirs in the school. I was a member of one of the choirs because the school was divided into 4 houses. Mtima, Sihlele, Attidate, and Charles. I was with Mtima. So Mtima had a choir and all the other houses had a choir. And then there was the Jazzuary where I used to sing and dance. So if you didn't like choral music, you could get in here. But I sang in the choir. I also sang in the Jazzuary. And I was playing trumpet then, 72, when I went to boarding school. So by 72, I come across, in fact, a saxophone. An uncle of mine tells me, I've got a saxophone. I said, that's what I wanted to play all along. So I had to play trumpet because I played bugle. Just anything to play music, But even at that, I wasn't like picturing myself as a musician. I had dreams of becoming a doctor and stuff, But 72, my uncle tells me he's got a saxophone. So after doing my chores at home, I used to be there early in the morning. Showed me 2 scales, C major scale, the G major scale. And then during school holidays, I used to do that. It was routine every day. Then I came back home, I was doing my final year matric, 1973. I came home for the September holidays. So it was he lived 2 streets away from me. So one of those days I went there, he says, I can see that you're passionate about this thing. So why don't you take it? It was a silver Selma saxophone. And man, I was like a kid in a toy shop, I used to sleep with it, and I didn't have a teacher. So whatever I learned from trumpet, the theory, a little bit of theory, Sibongile Khumalo's elder brother, Linda Mngoma, he taught me my first theory lessons. So I would take that, and use that for playing other scales other than the C and the G that I was taught by my uncle. I'm largely self-taught, although there were elders who showed me stuff, what to practice and so on and so on. I met this elder brother from Kimberley. He used to play with the Beaters, which became Harare later. And I was also, a member of Beaters, just at the cusp as they were changing from Beaters to Harare. I didn't stay much with them, long with them. But Thabo Maila from Kimberley, he showed me a number of things, how to pick up things off the record by ear. I learned by rote, although I had a bit of theory and a bit of sight reading skills. And then I finished my matric. Then I went to Petersburg, which is Polokwane, to do my medical technology, because I couldn't get onto medical school. There was an exam paper leak and so on, and I refused to rewrite. And then I got a year mark much later than I should have. So I couldn't get to medical school. Then the logical thing was to do medical technology. So I did my first year in Polokwane. But my saxophone was always with me, picking up things by ear. That was 74. Then 1975, I went to do my second year at Ga-Rankuwa Hospital, which is George Mukhari Hospital now. That's when the music bug beat me very hard. I met Boplondi Mahlangu, joined their band, and my studies suffered. Fought with my parents over my choice of career. But I think at that point, my mind was kind of made up that I'm not going to work for nobody. I have this thing and I will survive. I will live, using my talent. Because I had read somewhere that people who are really successful in life are people who work for themselves. So this notion that get a good education and get a good job for me was like, and then with also my Pan-Africanist background, I was brought up by a father who was a member of the PAC and the Black Consciousness movement in the 70s when I was doing my matric. So I didn't picture myself because I was also volatile. I had a very volatile temper when I was young. So I wouldn't succeed in that environment because I'm too much of a free spirit. So that was the beginning of my musical career. So I left school in 1975, played with bands. Balupi was another local band that had won a music competition, but the band disbanded. Then I went to Peter's Harare. Like I said, I didn't stay long there. By 1976, I was already at the Pelican nightclub, the only nightclub in Soweto. And I remember Stompy Manana, the trumpeter, and Teaspoon Delu, the alto sax player. They canvassed me to come and join the band. Yet they knew they were leaving for a tour with Richard John Smith. So I get there, these guys are playing jazz standards, and I come from a pop band, 2 chords. They were playing dance music as well. This was before DJs. So the band, we used to play from 8 in the evening for 2 hours, then from 11 to 1, 8 to 10, 11 to 1, 2 to 4, and then 5 to 6. Every Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we used to come out much earlier. For the first 2 hours, the brothers were playing jazz, and I couldn't crack it. You know, I loved jazz because there was jazz at home. There was all kinds of music at home. Because sometimes you carry this label that people say you're a jazz musician. I'm a musician first. I love music. Then, of course, there's preferences, you know. I love good music with melody, harmonic structure, and good rhythm. I don't care if it's a pop song or what kind of song, you know. But if it's good and it appeals to me, I love it. So the brothers were not overjoyed with me joining the band, you know. And there was this Grootman, Dick Khosa, he was a drummer. He led some bands with some of the greatest names to come out of South Africa. Tutu Pukwan, Monge Difeza, Mankunkungo, Sipho Bumede. He was a drummer, but he was a manager at this club. And they would say, this boy has a good sound, man. You know, because sound is the face of, you know, that's what you remember. You know, these days sometimes it's hard because everybody does the same licks. The books are there. Before we learned things by ear and so on, you know, you would picture yourself playing like Stanley Tarrantine. Was one of the people who influenced me on tenor sax. Before I even got to John Coltrane and other, because I couldn't process that kind of music yet, you know. My harmonic skills were almost not there, you know. The love and the passion, the fire in the belly pushed me. And I had to practice very hard. You know, I came back home, did my chores at home after dinner, locked myself up. Practice very so that I don't disturb my parents, you know, until 4 a.m. and wake up in the morning, do my chores, get to the club at 9. We start rehearsing at 10, you know. So I have that hour at the club. So other elders, my music elders, this boy is kind of serious, you know. No, you must stay around after rehearsal. There's one such brother, Papa Mkwena, was a guitar player. He used to build solos for me, you know, teach me a standard and then teach me how to solo over the chord changes. He couldn't name the chords. And Bugs Gono, a pianist from Cape Town, I remember we were playing one song, 500 Miles. I'm not sure if it's by Chick Corea or Stanley Clark, but it was played by Return to Forever, if you know that group. Stanley Clark, Chick Corea, Lenny White, the drummer. Yeah. And so we're playing this song, and I couldn't crack the changes, you know, and he wrote them out for me. But it was a way of saying to me, I have to be harmonically aware of what's going on. The other Grootman is, they used to say it, you know, sing the song, because the guys were not schooled. They didn't have the terminology to say, this is what you need to do and blah, 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 you know. So how my mind works, if I cannot wrap my head around it, I get very frustrated, because I remember I used to ask Mahlangu, say, man, teach me the magic, man. And Winston would say to me, you're better off, man, at least you can read the golf sticks. I say, yeah, but I can't play like you. I do that, but I can't play like you know. From Mahlangu, I had to open my ears and pick up things by listening. You know, I paid attention to what he was doing, to what he was saying when he was teaching us his music at the Pelican nightclub. And then there was Duke Makasi, who later on, after I had been then I went to university because I wanted to understand. When I went to university, I didn't have the lower grades in harmony, in theory rather. So Professor Kabingoma arranged it in such a way that for first year you had to have grade 3 theory. For the second year you had to have grade 5 theory. For the third year you had to have grade 8 theory. So I went through that. Even though I didn't complete my degree, I wanted to learn jazz, how to play jazz, but I was doing classical music. I was not even doing the saxophone. I had to do the piano because there was no saxophone teacher or even a flute teacher for that matter, because I was playing flute as well. So I had to learn the piano from reading one stave. Now I must read 2 staves. So it was very hard, but as time went on, I grew impatient with that process. And then I quit school and started buying books. So in 1980, I had known Brajuk from jam sessions and, the Pelican. But 1980, I was invited to join Spirits Rejoice, which was one of the seminal bands in the country. And I spent 1 year before the formation of Sakile, which was 1981. So during that year, when I was with Duke Makasi, great player too, not much is said or even known about Duke Makasi. He didn't record much, but him and Mahlangu, for me, they were the kings. And they liked each other. Their competition was not the bad type of competition, They would share a drink and say, no, I can outplay you. The ones, then they go on stage and call this crazy number called Giant Steps and play it at the fast tempo, and the guys would nail that song, So I spent time then with Duke, and sometimes, you play things, you practice things at home. And then when you're warming up before the concert, and you would ask me, what are you doing? I said, no, I'm just doing. He said, no, you can't do that. When you play, where are you going to use that? What is the chord? You see, it takes me back now to that thing. What is the chord? So probably I've been doing a diminished study. I said, no, look for a song that has that diminished chord and see if it fits, for the duration of that chord, play that pattern over that chord and so on. And I would practice the John Coltrane solo. I had a transcription, practice it and learn it by rote. So after playing it for him, he would say, no, I've heard John Coltrane. Yeah. Let's hear you now, And that kind of shaped me in terms of thinking about chords, about scales, about harmony. Then I joined Sakile. I formed Sakile with Sipho Gumede in 1981 because we felt that we needed to take music from our folklore, music from home, and do things with it, do things with it. And we're pretty much kind of successful in terms of creating that sound. And people slowly warmed up to it, and then, of course, then the ego started coming in, and it was no longer about the music. Sipho Gumede left the band, I think, 83 or late 82, somewhere there. He left the band, and we replaced him with Fana Zulu and proceeded with the band until 85. Then we couldn't just proceed, Our hearts were not in it, and we had lost that, fire in the belly. So I left for Germany, November. I left for Germany to play with a guy called Duze Mahlobo. And, I came back early 86, started freelancing with whoever wanted my services. So I recorded with Yvonne Chaka Chaka, Brenda Fassi, Hostix Mabuse, Stimela, as an independent artist. Then I went to the States 86 with Masimela Manaka. I was the music director for a play of his. I led a very small cameo role, I didn't say much, I didn't have lines. I just had to sit there and be serious and then play a beat as well, So we went to New York to Lincoln Center. You associate Lincoln Center with Wynton Marsalis. So I was there 86 for a month, performing there. It was a festival organized by Dumagandlovu of 5 plays by South Africans. So there was Barney Simon, Masimela Manaka, Maishe Maponya, Mbongeni Ngema, and Pesimdwa. Barney Simon was presenting Born in the RSA. Masimela Manaka was Children of Asazi. Maishe Maponya, I just forget the title of his play. Mbongeni Ngema was Asinamali. This was after Wars Albert. And Pesimdwa was Bopa. Well, I've been teaching, I've always, because the era in which I grew up, if you knew something, you taught it to the other brother. So all my life, I did that just to pass on information, because my philosophy is you cannot be informed alone. I've got information. Then for people to know that you have information, you have to disseminate the information. You know what I'm saying? So without bragging about it, I've taught a lot of youngsters, or just good advice in terms of in this industry. Susceptible to drugs, to things that will be a stumbling block to your career. Not that I didn't go through those things, but I was smart enough to liberate myself from those things when I was young. I didn't do drugs, maybe weed, yeah. and alcohol, you know what I mean? But my father used to say, which musician has a house? Look, man, look at so-and-so, look at so-and-so. You want to be like that? So, like, I was like, no, I don't want to be like that, you know. So even when I was drinking, I used to exercise a lot, take road works and stuff, so that, you know, I have a strong body and so on, so that you also have a sound mind. So working with young musicians and imparting skills to them. Also, you remember that the kids are the future. The young ones are the future. And also I like the way they think and express themselves. You know, sometimes guys of my age are too set in their ways. You know, so I modeled myself after Miles Davis and Art Blakey, you know, so that when eventually I left Sakile in 1992, I freelanced with Hugh Masekela, Jonas Gwangwa, Kefas and Ileta. But when I did my own shows, I played with young musicians, and I learned different ways of expressing the same old thing, you know, because it cannot be done. There is no melody that's never been played. There's no melody that's never been in the air. You all grab bits and pieces and put them and say, this is my song. But it's stuff that's, because it's the language. So we all use the same vocabulary, as it were, you know. So when you're younger, you think you can change the world. No, my music, hey, my music. But as you age, you realize that it all sounds the same. It's the same thing, you know. That's why I say I enjoy playing with the young ones, because I allow them the freedom to even change my music. You know, say, no, Khaya, man, that's 1950s style, man. Why don't you do it like this? Sometimes they change my music to different time signatures, because, you know, the eternal triangle of it, the holy trinity of music is melody, harmony, and rhythm. So I might be playing it in one rhythm, then they say, no, man, that's old style, man. You know, that's old style. How about this? And if I like, I take and accept it as a development too. So young lions like Moses Mulerekwa, I also learned a different way of expressing what I've been doing longer than he has lived, you know. There's a whole lot of young kids, you know. I don't want to talk too much about that, but they'll probably tell you one day if you get to interview them.